am your host, Kemi Amin, and this is Who Are You? A podcast on purpose. Join me for conversations with people near and far about how they are finding their way, starting with one simple yet complex question. Who are you?
My name is Sutanya Dacres, and I am a Black Jamaican American woman living, cooking, and discovering life's joys in Paris.
Episode 1. For this first session, I had the pleasure of speaking with New Yorker in Paris, Sutanya Dacres, host of the Dinner for One podcast. After the end of her marriage, she decided to hone in on her New Yorker turned Parisian identity and get used to making dinner for one a la Francois, as she explored being a 30-something divorcee in a foreign land, trying to rebuild her life and identity. Sutanya started the Dinner for One podcast because she wanted to add a different perspective to the American in Paris narrative. I had such a great time talking to Sutanya. In conversation, I got a good sense of her intelligence, wit, humor, and thoughtfulness. And all right, folks, just a heads up, I'm one smiling and laughing African in this episode, so get ready and enjoy my conversation with Sutanya Dacres. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It is a beautiful day, as you can see from
Yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful day. The confinement is kind of they've loosened up the confinement a little bit, so we can like go outside whenever we want. So like I've been going on walks and stuff, and I was actually with a friend earlier. We went for a walk around the neighborhood. So yeah, I'm having a good day.
So can you just tell me about Dinner for One? I've listened to the podcast, but for our soon-to-be watchers, listeners.
Okay, so Dinner for One is my podcast, and I started it because so I moved to France in 2013 because I was married to a French man. Unfortunately, our marriage didn't last. It's life; it happens. That was around 2016, and I went through a really tough time. I wouldn't say the from 2016 to like the end of mid 2017 was a really hard time for me in terms of like coming, kind of accepting the reality of being divorced, accepting the fact that I decided to stay here when I definitely could have gone back home. And I felt like I needed a project to kind of like center myself. I needed something to center myself to make me feel like I should be here. And I found that one of the hardest things for me to do as a single person was to make dinner for myself. So I took some time back, I took some time away from like kind of going out and seeing my friends, like all those distractions, to really be by myself. And I found that cooking gave me so much joy, and it brought me so much pleasure. And then so I fell in love with cooking again, and I also was thinking about what I can do in Paris, and I was like looking at kind of reading all of these like expat blogs of like American women in Paris, and no one was talking about like moving to Paris and then like getting a divorce. I was like, well, I want to talk about it because it happens. I'm not the only person that this has happened to. I want to talk about it. And then I knew that I couldn't do a blog. I just knew that I didn't have the kind of discipline to keep up with a blog.
Gosh, I've tried and failed. Yeah.
I've started like several blogs. There's so many blogs out there in the internet world that I started that I just left.
Right.
And at the time, also, I started listening. I was super into. I was like just getting into podcasts. Like I was re-listening to like Call Your Girlfriend and all these other podcasts. And I was just like, oh, well, why don't I turn this idea like into a podcast? So it kind of, so for me, Dinner for One kind of encapsulates like several things, to summarize it. One is the pleasure of cooking for yourself, especially after a breakup. Two, a different perspective on the American in Paris experience, because a lot of it is very much like wealthy white woman that is living her best life in Saint-Germain, and I am neither a wealthy white woman nor am I living in Saint-Germain. And the third thing is just kind of, and I guess this wasn't something that was my objective from the beginning, but it's something that has just like come about, which is just like the resilience, like like acknowledging like our resilience as human beings, and especially women. Like we're put through so much fucking shit all the time on a daily basis, and we continue to to be strong and to to move on and to create great content and to be amazing. And we don't, I feel like as women we don't give ourselves enough credit for everything that we do. So I think it's like dinner for one for me encapsulates like those three things.
Yeah, that's great. And that's you say endurance. I've told several people, like, I feel like women, of many of our powers we possess, it's the power to endure,
Mm-hmm.
both to endure pain and to endure purpose, like to kind of continue on and we have a level of drive that I think we undervalue. Too many of us undervalue,
Mm-hmm.
for
And
sure.
also just to be like adaptable. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
women are able to be like, okay, well, this is a situation. This is what we're gonna do. This is how I'm gonna do it. Whereas, you know, people of the other gender, some may say the lesser gender, you know, shit happens and they like fucking spiral out of control. And they don't know how to
Have you ever been with like a man who caught a cold?
I
Like,
was a man that had multiple colds, and let me tell you, I was like, do you want to? Could you even imagine if, I don't know, let's say you had a menstrual cycle and you had blood coming out of your penis? But that's like every month, sir. But you know,
neither here nor there. um, so you said I was on a path towards self-destruction, and I'm
yeah,
not being dramatic. I
yeah,
realized that in order to get over the equal part heartbreaking and numbing experience of a divorce, I needed
yeah,
to forgive myself. I
yeah,
needed to do nice things for myself. I needed to stop my steady diet of wine, cigs, and men.
yeah,
So when I read that, I thought about self destruction,
yeah,
and I was thinking about, like, what is um, how does that play a role in the healing process? Like, I remember listening to your podcast, and you had mentioned something about, like, when I hit your bottom, you like were hungover, I think, and you're in the mirror like, what is my life? And then you shifted gears. But I wonder, like, in your opinion, like, how much of that self-destruction process, I'm putting that in air quotes for people who are listening, but how much of that self-destruction process was part of your healing process? Do you feel that way?
I don't know if it's a part of my healing process. I think my healing process isn't finished yet. I think it's something that's ongoing. I don't know when.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely better than I was, you know, when I started the podcast.
Sure.
I don't know if it was a part of my healing process or, yeah, it was just more of like a wake up call. You know, when you mentioned the podcast episode where I talk about being
Yeah.
hungover in my refrigerator and be like, what the fuck, Sutanya? It's like, you know, it's 8:30 at night the same day. Like, get it together. Um, I wouldn't say it was a healing, but it was a call that I'd finally listened to because I knew months before, I knew that I wasn't behaving in a way that was conducive to a healthy lifestyle, and I wasn't behaving in a way that, you know, frankly would make my mother proud, or like I wasn't behaving in a way where I was raised, and I wasn't taking care of myself, and there was too much excess of everything.
Yeah.
I don't blame myself for wanting to go out with my friends and wanting to, you know, drink a little bit, have a little wine, and just kind of like forget what was going on just for a short period of time. But I took it too far because it became my my a habit, a routine, a crutch. It was, I felt very comfortable being drunk, and to be honest and being frank, I felt very comfortable being drunk and coming back to my apartment hungover. So when I come back to my apartment completely drunk and spending the next days hungover, so I wouldn't have to think about the fact that I was in this apartment that you see behind me. I used
Right.
to share this apartment by myself. That the fact that my marriage, you know, went to shit. Like, I wanted to numb it so bad
Mm-hmm.
that I was in the process of numbing it. I was, yeah, destroying myself, and it got really bad. And I'm just really happy that I listened to that wake up call.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so, when, like, I think about when we go through trauma in our lives, and there's this point where, we receive all this negative energy, this negative
Mm,
experience, and we're holding it.
mm,
And I think many of us express it in self-destructive ways.
yeah.
And it just got me thinking about like the healing process, and are those ways kind of necessary in order for us to get to the start point of
I
healing?
don't I mean, I guess, and I guess it depends because everyone's like self-destruction looks different, right? Like some people maybe stop eating, some people they don't really go through a self-destructive phase. Maybe they just like maybe they cut themselves off from their friends or their family, not for too long, but like for a couple weeks, for a couple months, whatever. They're really like they look inside. Um, but I don't know if self-destruction is a part of healing because I don't want to glamorize that,
Yeah,
and
I
I
hear you.
that in any way because I was lucky enough to have enough sense of self
Mm-hmm.
where I kind of like slapped, I slapped myself out of it. And I think it's because I have a West Indian background, a
Yeah.
Jamaican background. And if my mother ever fucking found out what I was up to, even at 30, at the time I was what, 30? How was I? 31? She would fly to Paris and like slap me across the face. And also, so I have that. And also I mentioned, I think maybe I mentioned this a few times on the podcast, I'm not sure, but I am quite, I wouldn't say like super religious person, but I am quite spiritual. And I went to Catholic school and I grew up in the church and I still go to church here in Paris and all that stuff. And I think also like a part of me, like, so it's within the mom thing. And also I believe that like there was something more for me and there was a higher power that would take care of me the moment I decided to take care of myself.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. Yes.
So
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
that was pretty much it because I don't want to, yeah, because you have some people that, probably don't, if they don't have that kind of like family background, if they don't have that kind of faith,
Yeah.
they could really just like drive themselves and their lives into like a fucking ditch and not able to get out of it, not see a way out, and not believe that they can get better. And I didn't have that experience, luckily. So I don't want to glamorize
Yeah.
so as a way to healing. For me, it's not a part of healing. The part of healing starts when you acknowledge the fact that you're hurt and you're sad and you're not
Mm-hmm.
well. You acknowledge it. It doesn't have to be a big public, Instagram story about your life, but
Yeah.
just
Right.
yourself being like, I am not good.
Yeah.
How do I change this? I think that's the first step in the healing process, personally. I think, but not. I wish a part of me wishes I didn't have the self destruction period because now there's some bars I can't go to that I love. I can't show my face there anymore out of embarrassment. It's just like, some things some people I shouldn't have dated, some drinks I should have said no to, etc. So.
No, I hear you. And I come from Nigerian background. I was
One
born.
in the same. We're one in the same.
Oh gosh, a friend of mine likes to say Caribbeans are Africans who can swim.
That's amazing. I've never heard that. Yeah, 100%. One of the only friends that ever get this thing that I tell them are my African friends. Like, we're talking about our parents and growing up, whatever. And I would be like, nothing's ever good enough for like, a Jamaican parent. I'd go to my mom and I'd be like, oh, I got like an A. She'd be like, what happened to the plus? You'd be like,
Yeah.
who got the A plus? It's
Oh
like, I don't
gosh.
know, Jane. And she's like, why didn't you get the A plus like Jane? It's like, damn, mom. And
Yeah.
only
Right.
like, my mom would say the same thing.
The comparison journey is real. Yeah, no. I was actually, as a kid, I was a pretty smart kid, but I was not a good student at all. And my parents were just like, oh God, why? Who are you? So I totally understand. And so how would you describe who you are today?
Versus who I was after
Yeah,
the end of my breakup?
yeah.
That's a good question. I think today I'm a little less judgmental.
Mm,
I think before there was a part of me that was very much like it should be like this and like this gotta be like this. And I would judge people's like decisions a lot about their own lives. I wouldn't necessarily like I wouldn't be bold enough to be like, I think you're doing the wrong thing. I'd be like, oh, maybe she's right. Oh. Now, because there are lots of, behind the scenes details, whatever, about my relationship that I keep private between, me and my partner,
yeah.
my partner, my ex-husband, that I don't share with the world. And a lot of, even my friends, a lot of people in my life that I just, I don't feel like sharing with them.
Yeah.
Something that I want to keep between us. And so people could, think and question, like, so they've only been married 3 years. Are they sure? Da, da, da. But you don't know the full story. So I think that me having this experience made me definitely a little less judgmental. I have a little less expectations about. I have less expectations from other people versus instead of just like the basic of treat me with respect, treat me kindly. You know what I mean? But anything other than that, like anything extra, is kind of like, thank you. Like, I appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah. So less expectations, less judgmental. Um, what else? Other than that, maybe a slightly more confident, but I don't know if that is just because of my divorce or just like now, I'm going to be 35 in September. And I think the older the year get, because the more you realize literally no one knows what they're doing. And you're like, you think about even your parents, like, you guys had kids, like you didn't know, you know. So I think it's a mix of both, and also just kind of like, I have this back and forth thing. Like sometimes I'm very much like, oh, I need to like do this and have this plan, and then another part of me is just kind of like, you've already been through so much. Like from 2013 to 2017, 18 was so like chaotic and all over the place. Like, continue to hold on to your faith and let things happen, and they'll happen as long as you continue to be the person you are. Like, I consider myself a good person, I don't know, but continue to be the good person you are, things will happen. So I think also like a little less pressure on myself. I'll still, still have goals. I still want to achieve things, but just a little less pressure on myself and just like enjoying, all this.
Totally. That's interesting that you mentioned faith, because I think even for me in my life, I'm not religious. My father is Muslim, my mom is Christian. Um, and once I started to get older, young adulthood, I decided, like, I was putting all this pressure on myself to like pick one religion. It's like, oh my God, I got to pick a religion or I'm going to hell. And I realized that, I had to really build, it was more about a relationship, and I had to build my relationship with God. And my partner, when he came into my life, like, he was like, he would like, want to pray with me. I'm like, oh my God, listen, dude. Like, I just feel so self-conscious. And over time, as I built my relationship with myself, I went through traumatic things or, valleys in my life, and then just kind of having that faith and then that sense of self. That's so real. Like, that gets you out of so much. So even if you don't, like, you're insecure, the self-esteem is shot, there's just like, for some of us, thankfully there's a sense of self that can be strong enough to get us through.
No, that definitely saved me. And I never mentioned this in the podcast. It's exclusive. Even before I started the podcast, so I used to work for a technology company before I started my current job. And not too far from my job, there was a church. And I was just like really bad, like emotionally, like feeling really bad. And what I would do during my lunch break is I would go and sit in that empty church and I would pray and I would cry and I would just be like, help me figure this out. Like, I've stopped fucking going out, stop drinking. Well, not stop, but calm down. I've calmed down.
Simmered it down.
Yeah, simmered down the drinking. I have, I'm taking care of myself. Like, Lord, like, give me the answer. What should I do? What should I do? Like, how I need to feel better. I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling good. Like you said, I think it was just like, I already have this relationship, but it's made my faith that much stronger, because the more I went, the more I was just, kind of like, I feel like I sound like an old Jamaican church lady, but like throwing myself at the feet of God, it was just little by little things started to make sense. And yeah, my sense of self got stronger, my confidence, my path kind of became more visible for me to see.
Yeah, it's interesting how you have to like face your fears, that thing, facing your fears, and like to be able to move forward. And there's like a level of failure that has to happen in order for you to reach another level of success. it's so scary. Like, it was something I avoided for a large part of my life until I realized, oh, these
Like
things
it's
are chasing me. Yeah.
gonna happen. But like, think about those people that, people that are born into, for example, like extreme wealth that never have to
Yeah.
work or anything, or a lot of them are like, and not to say I don't necessarily believe that like the corporate 9 to 5 is for everyone, or like that is the model for how we should live as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these people have no aim and no purpose and no, you know what I mean, and that kind of, you can see it in how miserable they are, and
Yeah.
how just kind of like lost they seem. I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying that because I wish I was extremely wealthy. I don't know, but that's just, I don't know, from what I've seen. Yeah. So
No, I hear you. I mean, I myself was wealthy in another life, and somehow, ended up
I was a fucking
not.
prince. I'm
But
sure.
it's all good. We're working towards the independent wealth. But speaking of that, like, what is the 9 to 5 for you? Because you've been in working like a 9 to 5 traditional day job for most of your adult life.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
started out in in branding.
Yeah.
It was to be like creative director of like whatever.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Paris, and my relationship with work changed a lot because
Mhm.
it's not to say that people in France are less ambitious. You have ambitious people everywhere, and you have people in France that would definitely fit into like the New York kind of like got to be busy working culture.
Yeah.
But here, I really like learned how to live,
Mm.
and so I start my relationship with work changed, and it became more of like my career. I wouldn't say it wasn't important, but it took a backseat to my life and my happiness.
Yeah.
Really enjoy it. And I work to make money and to, I have goals. Like maybe I want to buy property. Maybe I want to go on this vacation. Maybe I want to buy myself this gift. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I have goals. So obviously I need to work to achieve them. But yeah, I'm working to achieve these certain goals. But my work doesn't give me a sense of worth anymore. It's a thing that helps me achieve what is going to make me feel good as myself.
Yeah. No, I hear
That's
you.
my relationship to a 9 to 5. I mean, I'm obviously not against it. We do live, even though it's a socialist society, it is still capitalist at the base, on the base. So I have to work, and I will work, and I want to, achieve certain things, and that requires a certain level um, in terms of hierarchy. So, but it's just to help me achieve certain goals. That's all it is. It's nothing more than that. I'm not my work.
Yeah, no, I hear you for sure. That actually has helped me in my career. I was very happy to hear that you're in communications and marketing and branding. When I was coming up, I'm not that much older than you. I'm 37, and so, but when I was coming up, um, like, I just didn't see that many Black people, much less Black
We're
women.
none. We're none. We're not there. It's like you would think black people don't exist.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was something that I felt a little bit alone in for a long time. And I'm starting to see a little more. Maybe that's just because we're a little more connected through the internet now. But that journey is a lonely one as well.
And
And
also like for me, and this is a completely different thing, but in the US, the first time I ever really experienced any kind of racial microaggressions
mm,
was when I started working. And these women, these white women, for some reason, I don't know why, clearly felt threatened by me. And I'm like, listen, ma'am, you literally have 10 years on me. I am learning from you. Like, I don't know why you're so hostile towards me. Like, I don't know. I feel like I kind of grew up in this racial, like, kind of utopia thing. Like, I went to an all girls private school. It's mostly Black and Hispanic in the Bronx. Um, and so it was normal for me to see women of color in positions of power, and for women of color to be considered smart, and for women of color to be able to get into Ivy League schools and, to do whatever the fuck we want, essentially. And also just like growing up, my neighborhood in the Bronx was pretty like middle class black, like black people with Caribbean and African people would be like own their homes. Like there wasn't this where my parents live. Um, it's like down the block from an all boys private school, so it's not like rough and tough Bronx that people think of when they think of the Bronx. And also
right.
because I had a very diverse group of friends from I was very small up until I went to university. So I was living in like this kind of racial utopia. I'm not stupid. Obviously, I knew that racism existed and I knew that it was a thing and like, but I never experienced it personally
Mm-hmm.
until I stepped into corporate America and I was like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah, that's another podcast for another day because I have some stories.
That
I
is
have
the thing,
so
capital letters. Yeah.
I had this one woman. I'm sorry. I'm
Let's go. Let's go.
I was like 23. It's my first job. I wasn't even in New York yet. I was still in Connecticut. I was in grad school and I was working there. And I was 23, and therefore I had a 23-year-old body, right? So, right. And I remember going to work one day, and I just had on like black pants. Never forget this. I had on black pants and a striped t-shirt and a striped shirt. Completely normal. I think I had on boots, whatever. But I was wearing this outfit. Not only was I 23, but I'm also a black woman, and I happen to be a curvy black woman.
Mhm.
So I put on pants, and it may not look the same on you if you have a pancake butt, but that's not my problem.
That's it's not my problem. Period.
My boss, a woman, pulled me into the office and told me that I should pay attention to what I'm wearing because it's distracting.
Oh.
And I looked down on myself and I was literally, I will never forget this because I was so confused and
Yeah.
also humiliated
Yeah.
because I was literally wearing a striped black and white t-shirt, like black and white shirt. And I have pictures of myself wearing this. And I look at it today and I'm just like, I was literally wearing a black and white shirt striped and black pants and boots. And she brought me in and was like, you need to be careful what you're wearing because it's distracting people. Yeah. But anyway, I have stories, but yeah.
No,
So
I hear you. Yeah, no, so do I. So do I. And it's a little bit enraging sometimes when I think about it. And it's interesting because what I have noticed, and this happens for, I think people of color in general, Black women in general, and I think, but what I have noticed is when you walk into a space that is mostly, if not all white, um, it has been my experience that when the woman is black, when she's attractive, when there's a
mm,
sense of self there, um,
when you're
and a
confident, yeah,
confidence there, there's just something that's like unspoken that just happens,
for
and
sure.
it's seen as a threat, right, rather than an asset, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really yeah, it's really jarring when it happens. It's like, hold on, huh? What? But why?
It can happen both ways
Yeah.
because something that happened to me here, this is supposed to be a positive thing, right? So I was at not this job, but a job in the past year in France, and my boss, the woman that was my manager, another woman, um, she was presenting. We were like presenting in front of the entire company. Well, the Paris office because we had offices all over the world, but the Paris office. So it was like 200 people. She's presenting, whatever, and she's gonna introduce me, and she says, "Et maintenant notre Beyoncé, like our Beyonce," meaning I was just kind of like,
Oh.
yeah, like I'm not
What?
gonna here and like, oh, single like this. I'm gonna present like the stats for this like campaign we did, like
Yeah, right. I can't. I sorry, y'all. I can't dance like that. Like that is
just
not going.
man.
Wow.
But for her, it was a nice thing to say. She's like
Right.
equating me with this beautiful, talented black, but like, why can't you just be like, this is Sutanya?
Yeah.
Not like our Beyonce, and y'all don't own me. I'm not your anyway.
Right. No, she like totally Josephine Bakered you. Like, oh my God.
Right? 100% Josephine Bakered me.
Oh man, that's
Anyway,
hard. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's like when I started my position, there were just certain things that I experienced as well. That was just like, oh my God, is this really happening? But the more sense of self you have, again, the more you can kind of withstand those things, and and push back to them, you know,
Yeah.
like it's an interesting journey. And so speaking of journey, I kind of wanted to like talk about food a little bit in your food journey. And listening to Dinner for One, it definitely reminded me of like when I first moved out of my parents' home. And it was interesting because I had lived with my parents fairly long. And so I moved out in my early 20s. And when I finally moved out, there was this weird, because I couldn't wait to get the hell out of my parents. No, you know, disrespect to my parents, but I couldn't wait to get the hell out. And so when I finally got out, there was a sense of loneliness, like and loss that I wasn't expecting. And so I found myself cooking Nigerian meals, you know, just to kind of bring me home. And I remember listening to the episode where you cook Jamaican meals to kind of take you back home, and I really loved that. And I wanna I wanna know like what has that meant to you to cook for yourself?
It's something. It's like for me. It's one of the nicest things I can do for myself. More
Mm-hmm.
so than buying a new dress. As much as I love shopping, um, more so than even buying myself a beautiful bottle of wine and sharing it with friends, whatever. It is the most. For me, it's one of the most loving and caring things you can do for someone else because you're literally like nourishing them, like giving them what they need to grow and to be healthy.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for myself, and I'm taking the time out. I'm sure I could throw something in the microwave. Sure, I can order something, on Deliveroo. Well, our seamless here is called Deliveroo, like
Mm-hmm.
Deliveroo. Um, sure, I can always go out to restaurants and eat, especially in Paris, like so many amazing restaurants. Hopefully, they open soon. But just taking the time out, buying the entire process of it, taking the time out, buying the ingredients, coming home, I have a system, putting on my music, getting all my things out. It's in one hand very like there's a kind of meditation around it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it's just like it's such a nice thing for me to do for myself.
Yeah.
We don't take enough time to take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
and it's not in I feel like it's self-care not in kind of like the traditional or mainstream ways people think of self-care, like your nails, like getting a facial, which is great, getting your hair done, which is great. I love a facial, I love getting my nails done, all that stuff, but it's something that I feel like is more connected to the soul. And
Mm.
it's something like like you mentioned me talking about making Jamaican food. It's something that transports you somewhere else. It's like, it brings you back to the first time you tried something and like why you liked it, like, oh, you had this pasta in Sicily and you were, I don't know, 24 years old, your first trip with your girlfriends, and like you met this guy named Giovanni and like Giovanni made your pasta and now you're in your kitchen making pasta and it's just there's stories with food and there's memories with food and there's an attachment to oneself that I feel like I connect with myself more when I'm cooking. And it also helps me in a very kind of like projecting in weird way. This will give you some insight into how kooky I am. I feel like the more I cook, the more I'm practicing and the more I'll have like if I'm lucky enough to have kids one day, um, there's certain things when I go back home that like my mom needs to cook. Like she needs to have like 5 of these meals ready, and I'm gonna just sit as soon as I like my luggage is through the door and I wash my hands. I'm eating all 5 of them at the same time with my hands. And things that even if she tells me that she's that's what she made for dinner or that's what she's gonna have for breakfast next day or whatever, I'm like, oh, I want it. Like I want if I have kids one day, I want them to also have that kind of. I want to help create those memories for them as well, and those kind of like mom things and those craving things. Like I just So
Yeah.
long-winded as usual, but
Oh,
food
that's great.
helps me connect with myself, and that's why I love it. And yeah, it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I love uh cooking for yourself and nurturing your nourishing yourself as a form of self-care. And yeah, like, you know, I think you know, I'm into my like facial routine now that I'm like over 35. So I love it, right? And I have a whole like ritual, but I hear you with the there's something about food that connects to your
And
soul
it's
in
so
a way that
basic,
nothing so
right?
can. What was
Right.
that?
It's so basic, right? Like everyone needs to eat.
Yeah, yeah,
No one
right.
can survive in this world without eating.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a basic human need. And I just feel like if I can give myself that, if I can take 20 euros, 10 euros, and turn it into like a boom banging, blazing 97 jams in a row, hot 97 meal, I'll be okay.
Yeah, right.
I will live, hopefully, knock on wood, a long and healthy life if I can take care of myself in that way at least.
Yeah, for sure. And as women, a lot of us, in my experience, we're programmed to kind of nurture and nourish other people,
Yeah.
right? And then even like when I see my mom cooking, like when growing up, she would like come home after like a freaking 16-hour shift of work, and then like, my dad will be like sitting back relaxing. And
Right.
like my mom would be like, right, right, exactly. And like waiting for her to get it together in the kitchen, and she'd be there. And Nigerian food is not,
Yeah.
1 hour situation. And so she'd be in there slaving away, and would cook this amazing food, and that would feed all of us and make sure that we were all eating. And she would sit down and eat. But there's something about cooking for yourself while you're cooking for others, and then after you cook for them and you sit down and eat, there's almost like, okay, I have to eat now.
Yeah. Now it's my turn. Yeah.
Right. And there's like not even really being present with what you're eating, but kind of vibing off of other people's energy and what they think of your food. But then that experience of shifting it to putting in that labor, and you're just having yourself in mind.
Yeah.
That can be transformative.
I mean, hey, it was. Look at me now.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. I love that. And speaking of like food and culture, you did talk about being tricultural.
Yeah, I would consider myself tricultural. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And having like being in Paris, in France, in Europe, having a sense of freedoms that you may not feel in the United States.
Mhm.
Um, do you think that like that sense of freedom, does that, well, one, in Europe, in France, in Paris, are those sense of freedoms different when you kind of go from Paris to France to Europe?
I
Like,
mean, I can't. I mean, like, I can't really talk to outside of Paris because the only time I've spent outside of Paris is like, yeah, if I'm like, if I'm lucky enough to, be invited to a friend's parents' country house in south of France, I stay there for a week, but I'm with my friends in their parents' house. So like, I'm
yeah,
I don't know.
I
So
see.
I can't speak to all of France, but Paris at least, like I don't know if I said it this kind of like frankly, but living here, I'm just kind of like, is this what white privilege feels like?
Mm,
Because as a Black American, I feel like I could fucking do anything. I could go anywhere. No one's like nobody has the right to question me. I have, I am just like, like my my Americanness is the thing that people kind of see and hold on to, not my blackness. Not they're not negating the fact that I'm black. Obviously, I'm a black woman, and in some ways, I lead with my blackness. I'm very proud of being black,
right.
but I don't have the
Celebrated there a little.
baggage. Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't have the cultural baggage of being French, of being a Black French person, and everything that comes with that.
Yeah.
I also just kind of like take it all in and experience it differently. But that doesn't say that I don't notice things that like where I live has like rapidly gentrified in the past couple of years since I moved here. So I'll be with my white friends and I'll be like, "Isn't it weird that I'm like the only Black person sitting at this like cafe?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "That's weird in a city like this, in a neighborhood like this." To the point where now they even notice and they're like, you're the black person here. Like that's in different places. They're like, do you want to stay? Do you want to go? Like, what's going on? Like, no, I'm staying. I'm gonna drink this wine. I'm happy y'all notice.
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I mean, I've definitely. It's made me the the one thing that the issue that I have with this whole idea of like white privilege. It exists. It's a thing, obviously, um, but it shouldn't be. And I think me experiencing this and how I feel here. It's like, why don't people all over the world feel like this all the fucking time?
Mm.
Like, just the fact of being human beings and being born and being on this earth, we all have worth, and we're all worthy um, of living like an amazing life and having access to these things and having access to good jobs and to good apartments and to good schools and to good food and to nutritious food. Like, as human beings, we deserve this, and everyone should have access to it. This this privilege kind of like hierarchy shouldn't exist. So that's the one thing. I mean, I'm benefiting from it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Benefiting from it. I'm benefiting from the fact of being American, and like people enjoy that.
Yeah.
Um, but the other part of it, it's kind of disheartening, yeah, because I'm just kind of like, everyone should, no matter where you are in the world, no matter the color of your skin, no matter your culture, you should have access to these things that other people have access to just based on the color of their skin or where they were born, or whatever.
Yeah. And I love your journey for that, because I remember years ago I used to work with young people, because I'm from, California, Oakland, California, originally. And I used to work with a lot of young people who lived in, essentially the ghettos of
Mhm.
Oakland. And they hadn't even really been past their block, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And there's a sense, and I remember that there were times where we would go out and I would take them to the museum just in Berkeley, I mean, which was like 20 minutes away.
It's
And
like
there
a
was
different world. I didn't even know
right.
this. Yeah.
And it was like it was so outside of their realm of reality. And
Mhm.
that it was almost to the point, it was kind of sad because it was almost to the point where they felt like they didn't belong. They couldn't be there. And it makes me happy to hear your journey to like go into an entirely different country, and then have this situation happen, this traumatic situation with your key relationship in your life, and then still find freedom. And like, just now I sound like I'm gonna be like Harriet Tubman talking from the but like, just so you know, like, you are reaching for your freedom for those kids, like you really are, for like
I mean,
black.
not to thank you, but
Yeah,
not to
I mean, not, no pressure, but
no, not the pressure. I'm just saying not to turn this, kind of going to digress again.
yeah,
But you know, if you look at American history, I'm gonna go far. I'm going somewhere.
let's
The
go.
reason why people that live in certain neighborhoods feel like they can't go somewhere is a result of deliberate urban planning, is a result of deliberate social construct.
Right.
If these kids, if already, if 20 minutes away, the way the neighborhoods were designed, the houses that are there, the schools that are there, already, if there wasn't such a difference 20 minutes away,
Mhm.
kids wouldn't feel like they don't belong. Kids wouldn't feel like they've stepped into another world when they're
Yeah.
20 minutes away. And it's because it was designed that way. And that's the disgusting part.
It
That's this.
is.
And I see it's the same in Paris. Like, I live in Paris, in the city, not the city center, but like in the city.
Yeah.
But then, like, Paris is surrounded by like what they call the peripherique, which is like a highway,
Mhm.
or leads you to the suburbs. And you have like the western suburbs, which are very fancy, very nice, whatever. But you have the eastern suburbs, where like all the factories used to be in the early part of the 20th century. And it's, for lack of a better term, like a lot of them are the ones that aren't gentrified, are still pretty ghetto, and they happen to be majority Black and Arab populations. And why? Because they were placed there.
Yeah.
You know, you know, people, when kids are born, they're not born with this idea of, I'm better than you because of the color of my skin, or I'm better than you because I'm from this culture. It's
Mhm.
something that they learn.
Yeah.
So I think, as a society, we all need to do our best to kind of like abolish that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I don't deserve to be here more than anyone else. I just made some decisions in my life that got me here.
Right. Right.
You
Exactly.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, I think, again, and I really, I'm bringing it back to the beginning of the conversation, where I think that speaks to also kind of having that sense of self,
yeah.
and being rooted in being, um, and trusting that your journey belongs to you and no one else.
Okay.
But there are very real blocks in place.
Of course, yeah, and the blocks that are in place, they're there because I mean, look at our president. Like he doesn't deserve that. He doesn't deserve this role, the president of the United States. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it on radio. You can quote me. you know, and
Yeah.
there are other people that are a million more times capable, but they just don't have access to that privilege. And like, anyway, I'm gonna stop because I have a lot of drunken debates with my friends about this all the time on a regular basis and how much it annoys me, how much is being wasted,
Yeah.
being um how much human talent, how much human progress, how much human good is being wasted because so many people are left out and it's not fair.
Yeah.
Have you don't touch my hair?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Sorry. Now you got me on a roll.
That's okay.
There's a part of her book where she talks about, one of the terrible things about the transatlantic slave trade and in particular was the loss of human potential. For example, she mentioned in the book there was this one enslaved man who was essentially like a genius mathematician, but to the point where he's written about in the newspapers. As an enslaved person, they were like, so and so owned by so and so is like he could do this, 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 like off the top of his head, and like do these props, whatever, these calculations. And he died enslaved on these people's farm, and his owners were illiterate. So like imagine if that man was able to, and that's taking it, centuries back, but today, you can have a kid in an inner city school that doesn't have access to the same technologies that someone in another school like 2 metro stops away has. And this child could be brilliant, or just they don't even have the opportunity to dig into themselves and their brilliance and what they have to give to this world and to society. And as a result, they feel like losers and they feel lost. And then it's a cycle.
It is.
And it's, like I said, it's just a loss of human potential and human greatness that really infuriates me. But sorry, I digress. Continue.
No, it's all good. I mean, it is infuriating, and it actually gives me fuel it adds to, like this idea of purpose for me. Because I don't necessarily, I used to feel like I needed like a purpose, like I needed a sentence that I like put on my wall and keep forever and ever, amen. And I was like, that went out the window a long time ago.
So.
Oh my gosh. And I realized that like purpose is alive and it moves and changes with you. And that is part of my purpose, is in order to progress and elevate for those who can't, or who don't, and can't is very like relative, right? Like I think it's, a psychological who can't, and it's also a structural racism who can't, and you know what I mean? Like it just makes
a lot of blocks to, like you said, a lot of blocks to.
Yeah, totally. And so in taking in light, I actually wanted to talk about one, like your relationships, romantic relationships.
That's not light. Oh no. Did I make myself a drink?
Well, it's evening time and you're neck of
water. Like, sure, just like go make myself. No, I mean, like, I won't say too much because I'm gonna actually, after we finish this, I'm gonna record a podcast episode about dating in the time and like some of the things that became clear to me.
Good, I can't wait.
What I mentioned before in the episode, I think, is that dating post divorce is hard, especially dating post divorce in your 30s, right? Like, it's hard not to feel jaded, and it's hard not to feel like, what's the fucking point? It takes a lot of work to kind of get out of that negative mindset. It took me a lot of work. And so there was a part of me that was doing that, but it was like such a mindfuck because a part of me was doing that, being jaded, but then also kind of like using the men that I was dating as some kind of like validation thing that I still got it. I don't know. It was a strange time. And then also, it's kind of like, do I want the headache? You know, Whoopi Goldberg had a great quote. She's not married because she don't want nobody in her house.
Yeah.
Like, this space that I have, I don't want no man with like testosterone and all of it.
Yeah,
You know,
that's the vibe of that's
I
like
know.
Dr. Rhymes. I think she has a partner, but she's like, no,
Yeah,
you're not moving in here, buddy.
exactly. No, but I mean, I would love to, I would love to one day like have my own children and be in a relationship. Um, I hope it happens, but like,
Would you move back to the States for love?
no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only way a man would be able to get me to move back to the States is if he is willing to confirm, and I've seen with my own two eyes, that he can give me the same lifestyle as Miss Oprah Winfrey. He can. If
Yeah.
I'm living like Oprah in her kitchen singing Deo with her wine and going into her garden and taking out those like huge ass lettuce, you know, I'm not doing it. No, I mean, no. The only way I would move back to the States is if I have to. I don't envision it, but life happens and things change and people change. But for now, I would love to, if I can, stay in France. Um, if I were to leave Paris, then maybe like London would be nice. But I can't see myself living in the U.S. anymore. But that could change. But I don't know if I would. It would have to take a very special person for me to uproot myself again.
Hmm.
To like imagine if I met someone, he's like, oh, I love you, come back to New York, and I went to New York, and then 2 years later he's like, I don't love you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm good here. Like, let me, my dream, my ideally, I had this whole thing before. I was like, my friends, because I was dating all these French guys, and and it wasn't working out. And my friends were like, you should like, why don't you like try to date like an American guy that like lives in Paris? I was like, are you crazy? I didn't move here to date like fucking Chad from Rhode Island. If I wanted, like get out of here. But now, the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, it kind of would be nice to like, if I were to meet like an American guy of like Jamaican heritage, or like just an American guy who's cool,
Yeah.
like that lives here. I mean, it's obviously like a different type of American, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wants
Mm-hmm.
to like live in Paris for the rest of his life. Like he's not
Yeah,
like
that is for sure.
um, which is more my style. So now it's kind of like, and it would be easier too because we can like make fun of French people together, and then it wouldn't be this like language barrier, and it would be comforting because it would be kind of like a us against the French,
Yeah.
like the American, the American forces here
Yeah.
against wacky French people. I want to date more intentionally and more seriously without my hangups. And I hope I'm successful, but I don't do online dating, so that makes it hard.
Yeah.
You can't meet anyone now if you're not dating, if you're not swiping on them. Which I mean, I'm just like, if I see a guy at a bar at a restaurant and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him and he smiles and I smile, I'm gonna go talk to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he has a girlfriend, you shouldn't have looked at me and smiled.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, yeah.
Well, I love that because it's yeah, online dating. I've done that before, and it's oh gosh,
It's just so much work for such little reward.
yeah, definitely. And I feel like there's a whole experience too for Black women
Oh my,
online dating sphere. That's
so many, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna entertain you. I'm not even. Yeah, I'm not trying to be anyone's chocolate fantasy either. So like, I'd rather meet someone like through friends. I still believe in meeting people through friends and in streets and at bars. And if that means I'm gonna be single for like another couple years until that happens, then like so be it.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think well, I'm speculating that divorce has made you more decisive about what you want.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. I definitely don't put up with any crap, and I am pretty decisive, and I'm very sure about what I want, indeed. But I think as a result, I can maybe a little too like cutting you off when I think of people in my past where like they weren't bad people,
Yeah.
they just had a bad moment, and I just didn't give them a chance.
Mm-hmm.
it's a little too late.
It's an
Right?
art. It's an art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think I need to find the balance between being someone that was divorced and hurts and everything, and still being able to kind of like trust people and believe that all men ain't trash.
Right. Yeah, that can be hard sometimes. So that's not.
Yeah, because they're trashy. They
Yeah.
do trashy things. They can think they're trash. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Deciphering the trashy moment from the
yeah,
pure trash. Right.
yeah. So
And so like with your relationship with yourself though, I mean, I love that you went from kind of, do you feel like your past relationship defined who you were?
a little bit. It was a big part of my identity
Yeah.
because I my ex when I was 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect to meet him. I didn't expect to, especially a French man. You know, we do this like long distance thing before we got married. This whole thing, and I was like an American woman in Paris, married to this French man, like living in this apartment. Like, yeah, it was a huge part of my identity and who I thought I was and and I acted in a way that I thought I should, being the wife of someone else. So in some ways, I lost myself a little bit in my relationship.
Mm.
In some ways, I lost myself. I How can I say this? I was losing myself and I lost myself, and I was fighting so hard to hold on to my identity, that was a big rift in our relationship because I was trying so hard to be an independent person here that I started living a life that didn't include my ex-husband.
Mm. Yeah.
So when I realized that was happening, I was like, instead of, being kind of like a mature adult, which I wasn't at the time, and talking about it, I started living a life that didn't include my ex. And that's unfortunate, but that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I made like I definitely won't make that mistake moving forward. If I, get into a serious relationship, I'll always be sure to have my own identity and not allow my partner to influence that more than, he should.
Yeah. Yeah. But that journey led you to Dinner for One, right?
Yeah, yeah. It led me to yeah, to just taking care of myself again and
Yeah.
being okay with being by myself and loving myself essentially, more or
Yeah.
less.
And so, what would you say? What meal would embody the person that you are?
Can I have like can I do like a course, like courses?
Oh, do a course. Yeah.
Um, so I would definitely want to start with, I know not a course. Can I do like all day?
Totally.
Thanks. So I would definitely start with a Jamaican breakfast food because that's like the foundation of who I am, right? Like strip away the Americanness, strip away the, semi-Frenchness because I'm not a French citizen yet. At the core of who I am, I'm very, when it comes to my values, when it comes to how I want to live my life, when it comes to who I am in this world, I'm very Jamaican. So yeah, that's the foundation. It's like a Jamaican breakfast, like fried dumplings and like plantains or something, some kind of saltfish. Oh, like Blue Mountain Jamaican coffee on the side. Yeah, like yeah. So definitely a Jamaican breakfast, and then lunch. I feel like lunch would be like pretty American. Like I'd probably do some kind of like Caesar salad thing. I don't know. Like something like completely made up, right? Like some American things like completely made up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely like, yeah, something like a salad. I don't know. For some reason I feel like salads are very American. I have a salad. So I'll have some kind of like a Cobb salad or
We've
something.
owned it. Yeah. Cobb salad. Oh, Cobb salad. Totally.
I have a Cobb salad as my lunch. And then dinner, I think I would do, I think it was the last episode of season 3, I think, before this whole thing happened. The most recent one, the Jamaican jerk duck thing, was
Yeah. I
kind of,
love that.
it was so, and it's so fucking good. I'm not even trying to be humble. It is so good.
Yeah.
I think I would
through the headphones. Yeah.
for dinner. I would want something that like encapsulates like my Jamaicanness and like the kind of semi-Frenchness that I have going on because it's me now. So yeah, I'd probably do that. And then for dessert, when I was little, I loved grape nut ice cream. My dad used to get it from this like little Jamaican ice cream parlor thing store that was like near my house, and it was like a Friday treat in the summertime. I would love it. So I think I'd probably do like grape nut ice cream with like a little like whipped cream or something just for the French touch.
Oh, I love that. Nice.
That's
So
what that's the that's a day course that embodies me. I couldn't stick to a meal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, we're simple yet complex people.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sutanya. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Here. Have a good one. As I say, au revoir.
Au revoir. Bye. Check out Sutanya's podcast at dinnerfor1podcast.com. You can watch episodes of the Who Are You podcast on YouTube. I'll drop a link in the description. Subscribe, hit the notification button, and like the videos. You can also get early access to episodes by joining our mailing list at waypodcast.com. That's WAY podcast.com. Until our next conversation, I'm your host, Kemi Amin.